Within the Unwrap UVW modifier, we have a subset of tool called Peel, which give you more control in unwrapping more complex models. You can find them towards the bottom, and there are two main modifiers, two main algorithms. We have our Peel algorithm and two options for that, and then we have our Pelt. We'll look at both. When starting with either algorithm, you start off the same. You start off with selecting seams. So we have the notion of two types of seams, and if we go down to the bottom, you get to see we have map seams and peel seams. Map seams are the default green seams that we see on the, in this case, we get to see on our border edge here, and that's because I have just kind of default projection here. So if we grab this guy, open up our UVW editor, we'll get to see we just have a top-down projection. Let's change this a little bit so we have more seams. We'll go ahead and I'll just explode this. So here you can definitely see we have more seams within our editor, and this is going to be useful in order to see some issues that you may come across when using one of the peel options. So you may come across a model that might look like this. So when using Peel, since you are making seams, you probably want to turn off the first set of map seams, and that will turn off these green lines. Now we have access to a few tools to create our own custom Peel seams, which we'll see here, and the seams that are created will be a blue color. So the first tool we'll look at, we'll just come in here and start clicking, and you might be able to see, might be difficult to, but we have this blue line that's coming in. If we hit F3 to go to wireframe, it might be a little easier within wireframe to see our seams. In this case I came a little far, selected too many in this angle, so I want to remove my selection. I'll hold down the Alt and left click in order to do that, and that's again with the Edit Seams tool. So we can add with our left mouse button or Alt left mouse button click to remove. We have more advanced selection tools here, so if we go ahead and toggle this off and pick our point-to-point seams, we can use this advanced selection where we get to click. We'll have this little dotted line follow us, and we can click at a second point and we'll be able to grab a range of selection. This will make selection easy. So in this case, I had a few ways, because I was at this junction, I had a few ways this could have gone. I actually wanted it to come down this way, and it chose this route, a more predictable route for itself. So I'm just going to undo that, and instead of just trying to go at a farther distance, we will just walk it through bit by bit, and now we're at a more predictable area, and then we'll just take this up to the top. It comes through, and we're pretty good. So let's continue this loop. We'll bring it inside of the ear. We'll come here and then back down. So in addition to having this type of control, we have access to this next option, but first let's actually look at this potential, not a problem, but something that you might run into. You'll have access to the tool you'll be clicking about, and let's say I wanted to start a seam coming down here. If I go ahead and just start clicking, it's going to try to do a range, so I need to kind of exit out of the tool of sorts. So if I right click, you got to see that line disappears, but I still have the tool invoked, so now I can come ahead and click here and just pick my new range. So that's with the right mouse button. Okay, so for the next set of tools, we'll go and look at this grayed out option. This will allow us to take an edge selection and convert it to a seam selection. So if I were to grab this, we can utilize all of our edge selection tools, like our loop. Select the loop, come down here, we'll convert this to a seam, and now you get to see how this works to our advantage. So you have access to your loop tools, grow and shrink selection, ring tools. All of those are at your disposal for creating seams for creating peel seams. Let's go ahead and subtract this. I'll click, add you, and just get rid of these guys. So I'll Alt and marquee drag to remove that group of selection. So now I have my first set of seams. It's a closed loop, which is good. I can confirm whether or not it's a closed loop by going to face, selecting one face, and then using this last option, expand face selection to seams. Now my selection is contained solely within the ear, and that lets me know that I have a closed selection. If, let's say, by chance I missed one edge and tried that same tool, you got to see the selection bleeds over across into my entire model. So if you're using this last option for your final face selection, and you see things bleed through, it's because your seam isn't completely closed. So now let's undo that selection, undo that seam. So now let's go ahead and create another seam to split up this mesh, or this what will be two UV clusters. For this, I think it would be best to utilize the loop selection tools. We'll go ahead here, loop select. It goes mostly across. Looks like it went all the way across on the bottom, and we'll say that's okay. Convert that across, and we'll try this again, and we'll go ahead and project this front half. I'm looking at this and I can see that it didn't come through, but we'll go to face selection, select the face, and then grow, and it does select front and back. And that's because I made this mistake here, so we'll go ahead and give that a go. We'll select our edge. In this case, it's probably easier to grab point to point. I'll hit F3, go point to point, and then we'll select our face, and then expand that out. So something that I would like to point out, all of the tools down here, they work with your face selection. If you don't have any faces selected, it will perform either algorithm onto your entire mesh. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's why face selection is kind of important with this. We'll open up our UVW editor, and we'll look at all the different islands, all the different polygon clusters that are selected, or at least what's moving just from doing this seam selection here. So what you should expect the multiple seams to be laid out. They will look much nicer within this UVW, within our 3D view. At least the checkerboard will appear more uniform, and we'll have holes within our mesh, and that's because the peel option will respect your UV clusters. So if you have multiple UV clusters selected, it will keep them selected, but so it won't weld them together. But each one will be laid out more correctly than they are currently. Also, your peel tools will look at your topology, so it will look at your edge lengths and try to keep them proportionate. Now, between these two options, they're roughly the same. Your quick peel is kind of like an auto peel. It's going to look at the topology and do a best guess, and as you can see, nothing stitched together. It's not one complete ear, but each piece, if we look in the editor here, you get to see we don't have a lot of noise in our checker, and things look a lot nicer. But if we look here, we can see, yep, we still have holes here. The next option is the peel mode. We really won't see a difference with the projection itself, but the main difference between these two is the fact that this is kind of a boom, one click wonder. You click it and it's done, whereas the peel mode does this quick bam, you're done option, but it also has another set of tools that are associated with it. Right now the peel is live. Okay, did the algorithm. It's live. It's calculating, using all of its fun math, and it's calculating what this should look like if we were to break up our mesh or move points. One of the default settings that are enabled is this auto pin move vertices. So one thing you'll notice when I go ahead and grab some points here, if I grab these points and then just start moving them, you're going to notice that my projection starts moving. And that's because as I'm moving my points, it's calculating the peel algorithm on top of my mesh as I'm moving everything. Now, the second I move that vert, it's now pinned. So now when I go ahead and start moving another point, the entire mesh is going to solve, but it's going to calculate the fact that this is pinned and shouldn't move. So now I'm able to grab this, and you got to see the distance here stretching out, and I can do the same thing down here. Grab this, start stretching points out. You get to see that this little island down here starts moving. We can go ahead and start, maybe pin this out, and I can start moving these seams, and you get to see how the result changes. So this is how you utilize the peel mode. Both use the same algorithm here, but you get to see how you get control over your UVs. If at any time you need to remove a pin, we can do so. You can just select it, hit the X key, or this unpin selected, and that will remove your pin. You can use any other tool that you use that you're comfortable with using within the editor. So if I went and just did a break here, loop selection, break, you get to see that I was able to break up my cluster, and it then resolve this because again we're in our peel mode. So then we'll go ahead and do another loop, break, and you get to see this is now solving. Now the same is true if you start stitching sections together, it will resolve, but that's how the peel mode works. Now the Pelt mode again works with seams, and it also works with your face selection, but the thing to keep in mind is the fact that the peel mode will not respect your individual UV clusters. So what that will mean, if I go ahead and turn this mode off, everything is all my UVs are done. So as you work, you can turn off the peel mode, and you'll be okay. But as far as the Pelt mode is concerned, when we activate this, we will not have holes because the Pelt tool will not respect UV clusters. So if we go ahead and click this, you get to see that everything kind of changes. It isolates the UV view to what you have selected, and it gets a little confusing. Let's turn off our background. It's actually a little better with it on. So we have our UV selection down the middle, and we have this this stretcher item around our object, and it's a simulation-based algorithm. So you can think of our geometry as cloth, and these elements as springs, and there's tension from our mesh to our stretcher, and if we hit start pelt, the geometry will stretch out in respect to the tension within our stretcher. So in this case, you tend to get really spread out UVs, but this will also introduce a lot of distortion, which we can see within our local distortion option here. Anything in red is highly distorted, anything in green, these edges are close to being the same length as within our geometry. If we use our relax option, which utilizes different options here, either by edge angles, face angles, or by centers. If we use a relax, we can start introducing more or less distortion. We can reduce the distortion within our projection. We have pelt options here on the bottom to modify our stretcher. Our stretcher, we can actually come in, grab our points, and then modify this, which will create more tension within our stretcher. So if we go ahead and start simulating this, you got to see these points start pulling up even further since there's more tension here. Start pelt. We can reset our pelt. So if I were to bring these up, we'll have less tension here. You can see that reflects within the solve. We can also, if we have kind of a start, we have this position here that we may or may not like. Let's say we liked it. If we go to our pelt options, we can snap to our seams, do a pelt. In this case, it didn't really like it too much. We'll try smooth. Let's select stretcher. We'll scale this up a bit. Start our pelt, and then start our relax. Oh, I'm actually relaxing my stretcher, so let's go and deselect the stretcher, start to relax, and then now you get to see that we have less distortion within our UVs. We'll actually go more in depth into the pelt tools, set of tools in another video, but as an introduction to the peel options, this is definitely a good start. So this is your peel and pelt introduction.